and I must say it was hugely fruitful and brilliant throughout the day. And even now I can see no one is tired and they are looking eagerly towards what is going to happen now. Rapt attention and all that. So nice. And only thing is, Amit and Ruchir, you were on expert committee panel, and I was not involved in deciding the topic of today's panel discussion. Right. And then I was sort of forced to take up this panel discussion. You decided the topic, and and when I saw the topic, I was sort of, confused and slightly offended. I, being a structural engineer, you know what the topic is? Intersection of creativity and engineering. What does it mean? Engineers are not, engineering is here and creativity is here, and then they come here and intersect, which means engineers are not creative. So anyway, I'll make them best out of the difficult situation. I will sit here facing you.
Can we take two chairs like this?
Oh, you want to just?
Yeah, so that, that's it. Good enough. So that.
Right, but we have good balance here.
Yeah.
I, being the moderator, I will not consider myself as a structural engineer or any professional. We have two structural engineers here and two architects. So that's a very good balance. Engineering?
I don't agree that there is no creativity in engineering. There is a lot of creativity in engineering. Yes. It depends on your perspective. How do you see creativity as? Looking beautiful is not the only creativity that you can think of. You can have very creative designs which will save you crores of rupees. That's creativity. From structural engineering point of view, that's a creativity. From architectural point of view, looking beautiful, giving nice shapes and all that may be creativity. So both are creativity. It's not that engineers are not creative.
Okay.
They also have very good amount of creativity. Otherwise, you will not get optimized designs. I'm sure.
Right.
I don't know.
What do you
so probably will agree with me.
100%.
You agree?
Yeah.
Okay.
100%.
Okay. But in current scenario, or rather when these branches became separate, architecture and engineering, probably the word creativity was associated with architecture, and engineers being crunched by these codal restraints and the safety stability issues, the materials, the steel. Steel was not available. It was rationed some few years ago when I started my career. So by all these constraints, the creativity of engineers could have been suppressed, and architects, they didn't have any constraint. Who stops them from just drawing a curve like that, and poor engineer, then he keeps thinking how to do these structures and all that. So that might have been the case.
That's a right statement from another structure.
Right. Oh, fine. But I am unbiased. So, Ruchir, now how do you approach a design process, when integrating creativity with this engineering discipline that, sort of challenges you, that I'm going to design something, but will the engineer be able to give justice? And do you have such thoughts when you start doing your curves and lines?
That's a very interesting question. I'll give you a reference going back to your first question. I was very impressed by Santiago Calatrava. Santiago Calatrava was a structural engineer who then decided to do architecture. And I realized long time back, because even when I was doing my internship as part of my college curriculum, the last 6 months I actually spent with Mr. Uday Chande.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't want to work with an architect. I wanted to know what a structural designer does and what's his role. And I inherently felt that you needed to have a collaborative approach. I couldn't outline it at that time. Subsequently, I joined STU, for the longest time that I have been in this country, I have spent in a structural design firm, which was Stoop Consultants. And I marveled at the work that they did in pre-stressed concrete, which was the material they invented, Eugene Fresnay. And that legacy attracted me a lot. And that's when I realized that it's true creativity actually comes from the engineer.
Oh, that's claps.
It's misunderstood.
4 versus 1 now.
No. See, it's misunderstood that creativity is visual and it is purely aesthetic. A Ferrari looks good because of the way it performs. It is not because you can't say make a beautiful car. You know, there's no definition to it. At least that's my challenge, and I have been looking at these things for a long time. I approach every project with an absolutely clean slate. In fact, if I have an urge to approach it in a particular way, which are my first initial reactions, I make those sketches and put them aside, lock them in a drawer. And then subsequently, actually, I had the privilege of having the best of the structural design fraternity at my beck and call, literally, in Stoop. So we used to sit together and evolve the solution. And then I used to go back to my initial sketches and see why I thought of it in that way and whether it was applicable or not. If it wasn't, it was torn and thrown into a dustbin.
Right.
So that's how we approached the whole thing. And I'm telling you, it's the collaboration which brought out some of my best work and some of the best work of Stoop. So to me, in fact, the best buildings are industrial buildings for true creativity and approach to that, because they're governed and guided by simple process-based principles.
Right.
Okay, you can't have anything superfluous, you can't have anything lacking. And that brings me to my core philosophy, which I borrowed from Mr. Da Vinci, Leonardo da Vinci, who believed that nature's creations are the best because there's nothing superfluous and nothing lacking in them. And that's the approach to every project. Now, it's to the eye of the beholder whether he finds it beautiful or ugly. It doesn't really matter. If you see George Pompidou Center was criticized by the public. They thought it was the Paris monster. Loch Ness monster was a big story at that time. And they said Paris has its own monster now. And I think it's a marvelous building.
Yeah.
It's brilliant because it expresses itself so beautifully. And it's a transparency of that structure where you, being outside, can see what's going on inside. Every exhibit that changes, even if you're passing by, you can look at it. A literal translation to that was another stadium designed in, theoretically, of course, it was, they didn't win. And I'm glad they didn't because I'm biased. They made an indoor stadium with LED panels all around with cameras inside, which would take photographs from every angle of the stadium and project it outside. And I thought that was a very, very, infantile, for the lack of any other word, infantile way to have an interactive approach from the public to the participants and people inside. You can't put a barrier and then just project images. How energy intensive it would have been. And then you talk about social, relevance to that project. It was just shot down. Instead, I look at the cube, which was with the ETFE panels. That was a brilliant design. And I'm sure it couldn't have come up unless and until Ove Arup actually resolved it.
Right.
So that's my take on it.
What about your design process? I mean, you integrate.
Let me start with that term you use, creativity.
Yes.
And if I go to academics, creativity is defined as closing the windows of your mind that relate to past and opening a new window.
Wow.
Do you agree? Yes. So if that is something that is the basic of our architecture. That we need to open a new window. Every time you go to a shop for a purchase, the first statement that you make to him, Naya kya hai wo dikhao. Now that is the biggest challenge that our community has. The second point I wanted to make is, when you go down into this process of creativity, in our basics also we have something called rhythm. And there are 3 types of rhythm: a flowing rhythm, a progressive rhythm, small to big, and a repetitive rhythm. In Hindi movies, if a new heroine is there, she is not shown once. She is shown once, twice, thrice, 4 times, and the crowd appreciates that she is beautiful. The same thing with us, and we have these 3 philosophies to work out with. I was just thinking that in nature there is no straight line. Do you agree? Whether it is clouds or hills or rivers. Who brought the straight line in reality? Engineers. Because he was always talking about the curves, and the curve actually comes out from the natural form that the gods are creating. I always say that a good architect is the one who can imagine what otherwise on the same plot, if the god was supposed to design, what he would have done and created. So if I can approach to that level, then I am the real creator, which he was talking about creativity. So we are kind of that community which we belong to. Whatever type of project it is, if we can create something which is like Mandir on earth, then that is something that is a big challenge. But at the same time, I think Ruchir today had a good cup of tea with these engineers. So, 40% at least sold out. But then, yes, if I look at it, even I started my career with an engineering consulting company which was international and trained in Switzerland, where all injections were given to me that, forget about what creativity is all about. Let's be streamlined. There is a word called streamline, So you need to streamline things. You need to define the straight lines. You need to create magic with the straight lines. Either they are crossing, kissing or whatever. So this is, a very interesting game all through, what I have experienced. That you come out with various options. Maybe they are curves, they are straight lines, they are crossing lines or whatever it is. But then there is another word which is there in our academics, it's called form. Now how do we create that form? In the morning somebody showed us how the mountain was done in steel. So the internal part is total engineering. External part is total architecture.
Like human beings.
Like human beings.
I mean, we have a structure inside.
So I believe that unless and until there is a synergy of both these things, that is architecture on one side, which is talking about the ideas and the creativity and things like that, but a genuine justice given to that particular form or a creative idea or a concept is a challenge for the engineers to come out with. And today, of course, we know that we are talking about steel, we are talking about concrete, we are talking about hybrid and things like that. They are struggling to give what we architects want to create. So that is what I feel so.
So this brings, if I want to summarize this, creating a problem is not the creativity, but to find a solution which is, functional and supporting that problem definition created by architects. That is also equally challenging creativity. Is that correct?
Exactly. That's what. So I was trying to ask one more question to you. Who poses you bigger challenge in terms of creativity? Whether the developer or the engineer?
Oh, you're going to the practical world.
No, we have to, because in that sense, even architectural creativity can be curbed by the demands of, the project.
Exactly. It's not curbed by the engineers.
Commercial and space constraints. So it's not easy.
It's not curbed by the engineers. In fact, engineers are supporting you towards creativity. No, this can be done. You go ahead and we will design it. It's stopped by either market demands or by the developers. No, I don't want to spend this money. Engineers are actually more creative. They are supporting you with that, isn't it?
Well, we are fighting. We are fighting now.
No, I'm not.
I'm more creative.
I'm anyway 4:1, so I don't have to worry about that.
I said equally creative. Now you are saying we are more creative. So anyway, but as I say, see, a sculptor has total freedom to sculpt anything. He doesn't have any constraints. Okay, whereas architect is not like that. He may want to create a piece of art, but still he has constraints, commercial constraints and space constraints, rules and regulations. Okay, so that creativity is not absolute. That whatever he wants, it's not like that. So in that term, engineers and architects, they must be facing equal challenges. And I want to get this endorsed by a structural engineer. I mean, what do you think about this?
So,
Utsav?
see, with whatever limited experience that I've had, one thing over the last 10, 15 years that I've observed is, and this is with all due respect to all the architects, physics and gravity is now being appreciated and understood. And as long as that is being understood and appreciated, any form can follow that function or the creativity, and engineers can make it happen. The challenge comes when there is, an anti-gravity, creative aspect, when there is a aspect which goes well beyond the physical laws of the nature.
Right.
So if you see, we were just referring to a very beautiful example. Every single form today that we see in the nature, it's curved. It is parametric, right? Let's call it that way. And if you were to outline that singular form, every single form, it would still end up, having one fundamental gravity and physical law, which means that everything is connected and goes down. As long as this is understood, and what I've seen is, having worked with, multitude of architects, they understand this very well. It's now being taught so beautifully in the schools as well. And I see structural engineering professionals teaching in architectural department. And that's the best thing that, in my opinion, that has happened.
That's right.
And I genuinely, want to see more of that happening. We don't want to curtail their creativity. We want to enhance that.
Absolutely.
All the whilst simple, physical laws are being understood. That's my submissions, and whenever I go and have interactions with my developer friends or my architectural friends, or even if I were to go and meet a new architect, this is what I understand. Engineering only means this much. The codes, the other aspects is something that all of us are bound with, and there are ways to achieve that, and how do we propel the architectural, drive further? That's where the architects will need to get even more creative, and their role actually becomes all the more important here. Why? Because they now understand physics, they now understand gravity, and with that, how do they bring out the best and more nuances in the design?
Correct.
And that's where I see the architectural fraternity taking an even more stronger role. And I think you gave the example of Santiago Calatrava, right? And we've had some similar examples here in India as well, where people have studied structural engineering and then thought, no, let me now do architecture, and then practice together. And I've seen their work, and it has been a privilege to actually see and study, and in some cases even work with those structural engineering architects.
Correct.
So I keep looking forward to studying those kind of nuanced stuff. Yeah.
Ruchi, I cut you off. You were saying something.
No, he wanted to say something. I just wanted to add a few things, but I think you continue.
No, carry on.
Okay, so I was just took an example of a sculptor. If you see Michelangelo's David, a sculptor or any artist for that matter, if we go back to pre-architecture days,
right,
so to speak, a painter like Da Vinci was notorious for not finishing his works.
Yes.
And he was asked later on in life, and I don't know how true it was, but I'll give you an anecdote and you'll understand from there. He said, I was more appreciative of the possibilities in that fresco than what I was planning to finish with. Therefore, I left it at that. And I'm telling you, Rembrandt and all the others who came in, masters who came in later, actually studied those unfinished works.
Yes.
The technique which he had used, all frescoes required to have multiple layers, tempera, plaster, paint, how it blends in, how it stays there. That technique, it was literally like a technical guide being put on the wall and left for eternity for anybody else to come. Michelangelo, in that regard, was a contemporary 20 years junior to Da Vinci and hated Da Vinci's guts, but he inherently did the same.
Yeah.
He was a sculptor who he used to pass by this quarry, a marble quarry, and not quarry really, a yard. And the dealer had this huge piece of marble which nobody wanted. And he looked at it, he used to keep looking at it, and one fine day it just clicked. And he says, can you give this to me? And that dealer, he asked him how much, and he said, you just take it. So he got it for free, and that's how David was out of that. He saw the fissure. So you'll see David is not standing in a straight line. It's not a very natural pose.
Yeah.
He's standing at a slight curved angle to one side. And that entire thing was because of the main fissure in that stone. And he came up with that thought process. So you need to understand the material. You need to understand the technique, the technology, and the science and engineering behind it for true creativity to really happen. Right. And I think nature is our best reference point. And going forward as an intersection of two, whatever is your question, I have an answer for it.
Oh, you have answers to every question. Okay. So no, but if you permit, I mean, your what you just said, unfinished work, it reminded me of something. Although I didn't want to grab the conversation here, but you know our own Indian great architect Charles Correa. And I was his favorite structural engineer. I was quite young compared to him, but he took to me, and whatever his special projects were there, he used to call me, and I used to design for him. And he used to tell me that, oh, in that project, and he used to, I mean, he was a very abusive person actually. So he used to say in some other words that this is a shit project. It has to be finished by this December, and I wanted to do so many things, but now I have to hand over these drawings and I can't do. So I used to say, okay, do those things in next project. So he used to say, oh, you are idiot. You can't do these things to another project. That project is special. That will be a different project. But this conversation was something. But the thing is, he then decided to build his own house in Goa for himself. And then he told me, you are going to design this house, but I don't know how many years it will take to complete this house. And it happened that way. He built, then he saw, oh no, this is not right. He actually demolished that part of the house, came up with some different space. He asked me to redesign it. And this went on for 13, 14 years, his own house, and he never finished it until he died. And he said, no, this is creativity, because I see possibility of improving it. Every year I go to Goa in monsoon, and I see something else can be done. And he actually did it. He found his own home as his experimental laboratory. So that just diversion, not a part of this conversation. But I remember, I admire that architect, and that is why I just told you this story. But coming back here, did you find any challenges in any of the projects that architectural design demanded extraordinary creativity? For example, you must remember that making forms out of structural steel is quite difficult. And just as an architect requires a structural engineer to realize his dreams, structural engineer requires a contractor or an equipment to come up with those forms. I mean, you may say ki just bend this I section, but is there a sufficient press to bend that? You know, so both of you, was there any incident in your career where you had faced, very briefly, we don't have time, but just mention it and what was the problem?
Yeah, so in my very short career, I've had two such fascinating, I don't want to call it any other term, but very, very fascinating problem statements that, were thrown across. And it was more than anything an uncharted territory for me. And more than anything, that became my biggest challenges because those were uncharted territories for me. So one such project was, where, we just did a aquatic museum right here, about 5 kilometers from here, and we were essentially asked to use acrylic as a structural element, and that was a curveball because we had never done that, in our past experiences. We ended up actually installing, India's largest single acrylic panel installation of 330 millimeter thick, and to design that and to kind of review that process and to see the installation part of it and to make provisions for installing that particular entity, that was one such curveball that we faced, and another one was actually not thrown by the architect, and it it ended up being thrown by a very famous gentleman who owns a very famous media house.
Oh.
And I want the building in 1 year. I want the construction to start in 1 month. I want this building to be designed for more than seismic zone 5, and I don't want any shear walls. And so that was the problem statement. And so, in that process, of course, steel was something that obviously naturally came, and that was not the difficult part, but how do you design, for a performance-based design which exceeded, all the codal, mandates, and still, we could avoid all shear walls in a building of seismic zone 5. We ended up using seismic dampers. And it was basically a forced creativity, let me put it this way. It was a mandate which actually, forced us to think outside of the box. And that's why, it's important for people to throw curveballs, people to keep thinking new, keep pushing us. That's also equally important that, you push us, for a 100-ton force, maybe at the end of the day, 50 tons might actually get transferred to us.
That is great.
And
that is what we are talking about. Right? That is the intersection.
That's the intersection.
That's the creativity. Thinking something new to achieve the goal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Amit.
Yeah. So, yes, I have faced that kind of creativity issues also. When I was designing Rajkot Cricket Stadium, I was told that, look, this is Lord's media house. We just want duplicate of that. So how do you create that? Do you have any detailed drawing, dimensions, anything? You have nothing. But we want to recreate that here. So we face those challenges. I'll come to that in second part of my answer. The first part, more frequently, I face challenges in terms of, look, I want to do this. I want building to look like this. I want to design it like this. It has to be in a particular way. Yes, I don't have extra money. Please make sure within the same budget, you do this also. That's where we start scratching our head. How is that going to happen? I mean, where will I get money from? Where can I save it from? So that kind of creativity you have. I have been giving 4-meter cantilevers very regularly, which costs you about, say, 500 rupees a square feet. But this, I want to create 12-meter cantilever, it should cost 400 only. How do you achieve those kind of things? So that's where engineering creativity plays a major role. How you design it, how innovatively you model that, and how you ensure that you don't overshoot the costs. That's the that's a regular challenge which I get day to day.
That's pushing the boundaries. I mean,
Yes.
These pose challenges.
Exactly. Some of the buildings which we were designing at about 3.5, 4 kg a square feet 15 years ago, today, slightly bigger specifications, slightly heavier specifications, we are designing at about 2.75.
Right.
So that's more challenging creativity.
I think that's a collective creativity as well, because structural engineers as a whole, even I can vouch for it. I mean, even today we are designing tall buildings, like 300-meter tall buildings in 7 to 8 kilograms per square foot.
Exactly.
It's an achievement.
It's huge, and it requires a lot of scientific thought process.
Thought process,
lot of creativity.
collective, research and development of procedures.
Yes.
Amazing. That is amazing.
That's why.
So, Ruchir, you actually, in the previous answer itself, you mentioned your intersection when you were working in Stoop. I mean, you used to create something and then come back knowing the limitations of engineering and changing the designs and all that. So, I won't take your time, but I will definitely ask Prashantji. Do you sort of compromise? I'm now using the word compromise. No, it is the same question. Like, do you face challenge? So, do you face challenge in compromising on architectural aesthetic creativity, knowing the limitations of structural, engineering limitations?
I think I need to go back when I designed the first disco of India for Taj. And, there was an English lady who was wife of the chairman, not chairman, managing director. And she said, have you heard this word called disco? And believe you me, each one of you, I had never heard it. Because we go back, I think, way back in 77, something like that. So I never knew the spelling of discotheque. And then she took me to a movie theater just next to Taj, Excelsior. And we saw one movie which is more or less, based on a discotheque. 3 times. That we saw matinee, we saw the afternoon, we saw the evening. And over the dining table, she told me that now you know what disco is all about. And there's something called theme. So I'll give you couple of days, come out with a theme, and we are going to design the first disco of India. Believe you me, I had, I went on 2 days, I was just thinking and doing nothing. And came out with, I think, the complete A3 pad, the whole pad I sketched out, I discussed with her. And every time she said, this is good, this is good, this is good. But then again, coming back to that original creativity stuff, she said, I wanted something different, Prashant, not the same thing that we saw in the movie. And then I told her, ma'am, there is a restriction, there is a space already built. It's an existing space. It is already a part of the building, and I have constraints. And believe me, I think a couple of months we were working together to twist all those things. And thanks to structural engineers those days, who gave me some ideas, how we can really form curves within those straight lines which were there, either in the ceiling or onto the walls, and including the flooring as well. So I think that was something which I have never forgotten, because that lot of interaction with the engineers gave me these things. Whatever today you see in different forms of false ceilings is something which was experimented by us those days. So we did for walls, we did for this, and it was definitely not pure architecture. It was something to do with a lot of engineering down that size. Second example I have, where I designed what I call, let us call it as a farmhouse at Ambi Valley, Sahara, for Subhash Ghai. Now you know Subhash Ghai, he's one of the most creative directors we have seen. Now this guy, when he explained about the requirements, he said, I don't like doors. So no doors to the rooms except the bedroom. And people should just walk casually, move into the living room, maybe a raised deck for the dining or something. And then you have a wooden kind of apron everywhere and a swimming pool. And they are tempted to dive into the swimming pool. And when you actually swim across to the next edge of the swimming pool, you are at least 3 meters out of the cliff, which is hanging in the valley. It is there, and it is there in a lot of movies. And he wanted a glass floor. And I said, don't be crazy. I can't give you a glass floor floating into the valley. This is definitely not possible. But then the engineers contributed a lot for that creation. Because I really never knew that so much of water body, so much of weight floating out of the cliff, is it going to be possible? How we should do it? And he wanted somebody to sit like that on the apron and look at the valley. And it is there in many movies that he really shot later. So I believe that, the poetry is not only a creation. I mean, it's not to be created in words. It goes a lot of hard work, when we compose, twist those words together to make it a song. This is what is my experience with Subhash. We spent a lot of time together. Again, we sketched number of times. And then he said, Prashant, yes, I think we are coming closer to my concept. And that's how we completed this. I told him, what is your formula for a movie? And this is a little out of it, but I think it is interesting. So he said, Prashant, I always first select a heroine. She has to be new, beautiful heroine. I said, then he says, I want a hero which had never been there, like a topless Salman Khan. And then he said, I told him, what about the villain? He said, yeah, something like Amrish Puri. Usko dekh ke hi, khunnas aata hai, that type of word that he used. And then he said, I want a comedian. And he was very great fan of Johnny Lever. I think most of the movies he has Johnny Lever. And I told him, he's such a ugly looking person. He said, Bhaiya, uske chehre pe koi nahi dikh raha hai. His acting is more important than his chehra. So I want him there. So मैंने कहा फिर बाद में, what about the music? He said, yeah, we want something new like A.R. Rahman. And then I said, the main question remains, what about the story? He says, story तो बाद में आता है. चोली के पीछे गाना पहले शुरू हुआ, 1 साल के बाद में मूवी आ गया. Thank you.
No, so that was great. Coming back to our topic, so we saw the intersections, and we are all agreeing that it's actually collaboration and understanding each other. But now comes a very vital question, and it is, I have been observing since, now I am in the profession for 40 years. And our creativity has been increasing, and not only we know that, our clients know that, and that is why they pressurize us. The creativity, productivity has increased because of advances in technology.
Yes.
And so, now the question is, are we becoming more creative with the advent of technology helping you in all respects, right? Starting from drawing board to actual construction, erection, execution, and because it is helping us, we are able to create better, beautiful, challenging structures and buildings. So, what is your take on this? Let us confess that it is so or it is not. So, Utsav, start.
It is, period. It is. I don't think I would have been, half the engineer without the support of technology. So, while the basics are there, I think what we are today creating, and we are being pushed to create something out of the box every week. I don't think that would have been possible without the advent of technology. And yes, it has become a bane because the expectations have increased.
Right.
But then again, like I said, we get pushed and we get pushed and then you move. Essentially, inertia is bad and we get basically pushed only because of technology. So I am 100% all for technology, and I think we are still way behind what and where we should be with respect to technology and with respect to structural engineering and architectural practices, I think the next 10 years are going to be the most crucial. Most crucial for not just for India, but across the globe, where essentially there will be a significant merger of technology and engineers. I profess today that I have specifically advised a lot of engineering colleges and universities that structural engineers be specifically taught coding. Structural engineers be taught and oriented towards AI. Structural engineers be taught fundamental use of technology as part of their curriculum. And once that lot actually comes out over the next 10, 15 years, we hope to see even more robust technological evolution. So I see that happening, and I hope to see that coming faster than slower.
Yeah, right. 1 out of 4. Second?
Yes, of course. Without technology, we may not be able to support as much creativity as we are supporting today. Yes, of course, true. But who is creating that technology? Again, engineers.
But those are
right?
different.
Please accept it.
No, those are different engineers.
Whatever. We are talking about engineering. No, we are talking about engineering.
We are talking about creativity in our construction consultants, okay?
Right. So, for developing StatPro, there are so many structural engineers working. They are doing programming actually, sitting there. They are structural engineers. There is a lot of creativity from engineering which is giving you those top-end softwares. Fine, number one. Number two, yes, we need to have more and more efficient softwares. Even for architectural use, there are so many softwares.
Yes.
You can have all kind of 3D rendering done, right? You can visualize any and everything on your screen, right? So we have those softwares as well. We would like to have a software which will convert that architectural imagination or architectural creativity into structural creativity automatically. That should be possible to achieve.
Absolutely.
Why not? Right? So there are challenges. As he rightly said, there are AI, there are so many other things that we can do, and I'm sure we will be doing it as an engineering fraternity. Engineers are, you can say they are all born problem solvers.
But I'll come to this point later, which is very important. That will be our last point. So you can make any other point.
So what I wanted to say is creativity and engineering, there should not be interaction. They go hand in hand. They have to go together. Right? So I see it that way probably.
That's fine. That's fine. That is where we are concluding to. Ruchir.
So I look at technology as a tool, and it's an enabler. Creativity is not a tool. It is inherent. It's an endeavor.
No. Technology is pushing the boundaries of creativity.
Okay.
I'm not saying
So just to clarify, I cannot. No. For me, I find it extremely difficult to judge whether the cube in Beijing is more creative as a solution than the George Pompidou Center, which is more creative than the Sydney Opera, which is more creative than Taj Mahal. I think creativity is a human endeavor, and it depends on how honestly you pursue it.
Yeah, but
everything else.
Here, I want to counter you here. See, look at the forms of Sydney Opera and Taj Mahal. Now, Taj Mahal ka jo shape hai, that came because of the technology in those times.
True.
Okay, it's a gravity structure, and it's a stone on stone, stone on stone, some domes and all that, which is completely gravity structure, and that was a limitation. And now you say it was creativity, but now Sydney Opera, because we have some different kind of softwares to analyze that structure and anti-gravity structure and all that, curves and shells and all that, where were they in Shah Jahan's time? So the creativity
I agree
was
with you.
Right?
I agree with you.
Yeah.
The only difference is, I don't say that you can be more creative or less creative. You're just creative or you're not, period. Okay. The second aspect is, yes, technology is an enabler, But the moment you look at it from a solution finder, you are down the rabbit hole, in my opinion. Then technology, it's like you put trash in and you'll get trash out. And AI is going to give you tremendous amount of trash, and at a far rapid rate than you will be able to even analyze it. So that's a trap that we can get into. Let's not be governed by technology, and let's understand creativity is still a human endeavor, and it has to be honestly done so. The second part is about intersections. I know that things go in parallel, but they don't. Actually, they come in parallel only as a solution. The problem comes at an intersection. It is the first intersection point for creativity is when you have a client with his requirements and the architect who is doing the design program. He has to sit down, look at it, and has to bring out a creative solution to meet his requirements within the parameters. And when he finds he is reaching on the boundaries of impossibility or lack of possibility and too much of unnecessary challenges, it's his duty to guide the client and tell him, hey, listen, you're risking 80% of your investment for the sake of 20% or 15% more. Second part comes when all this happens, you have got a design program and you've got a solution in mind. That's the second intersection between the engineer and the architect. Ideally, all this happens very, very sequentially in a short period of time. If the design architect goes too far ahead with that solution, then it becomes an imposition on the structural engineer, which is not right. So that second point of intersection, if designers are aware, they will always make sure that they will get the structural engineer on board at the right time. Third intersection point is with the fabricator and the design engineer consultant. Yeah. The design consultant also has limitations which he sees from the technology. That's where technology comes in. It's not only at the design level, it's even more impactful at the manufacturing and fabrication level. So there are these three intersection points which I had identified long time ago. And I find that that's what I'm trying to approach is design build, where you make a collaborative effort. You cannot have a single person sitting down, going too far ahead on one endeavor and then giving it like a baton, handing over. It's not a relay race. You know, it's a hand holding. It's like a chain which moves forward. People join in at the right time. That's
right. Technology.
I think Ruchir has already clarified various points. I believe technology is a great boon towards, as he said, it's only a support element. Yes, it is a support element to extend, converting creativity into the reality. And there were constraints as far as those days were concerned. As Girish also said that Taj Mahal, the technology was different. And Sydney Opera, the technology, of course, made those things really happen. Although there was a lot of sweating down the line, which they always explain. In fact, there is a CD which is shown how it happened and in fact went to some other architect to develop that. So that is...
64 structural consultants.
Yes.
The last one was...
There was no technology.
So I think that is the best example where a good creative sketch which was made by the architect, it took so many structural engineers as well as technology to make it happen.
True.
So I believe that this is something which, again, as he also said, and I think Amit also said, that tomorrow it is going to be more so challenging, and we are running out of time for that as well, because we need to catch up those two things together. And there are so many things that are coming out of AI as well. But again, as Ruchir said, creativity will remain. Architect will come out with the ideas which probably the machine cannot bring in. So, we will have to see it too, as the time flows, as to what will happen. But then very good point that Utsav also made is that can we create, our own students at the institutes, be ready to face all that transition that is going to happen, and where the challenges will be posed by the technology in converting the concepts of the ideas into reality.
No, so this is the point where now I come, and this point actually you started, and I had that at back of my mind. You know, this intersection that we are talking of, or meeting of creativity and engineering, there will be a time, as you said, there would be a software app where architect creates a 3D model in some software, great software. And engineering, in fact, Utsav and myself, we were discussing this yesterday. There will be, engineering is, today, all engineering has come to a level of clerical procedure, because everything is fixed, all procedures are set, and every procedure can be codified. There is no requirement of spending your brain energies into analyzing something. It's there. I mean, the app is there. So, going further, if architect creates a 3D model, it's not difficult to analyze the same 3D model structurally, find out the forces and this thing, that thing. Application of load will be automatic, because architect will be defining that building as office building or auditorium or school building. So everything, what is there? I mean, structural engineering creativity is not required if you build an app like this. But now, as you said, that meeting point, we are making structural engineering redundant if we do that. The architect creates something and it is structurally analyzed. And it goes to CNC machine, your members are cut and it is getting built, or it may be 3D printed. So all this technology is going to come what may. I mean, it is on the anvil, it is on the threshold, it's going to come. But that is where we have to be careful and we have to be on our guard. What is creativity? What is engineering? Whether we allow the app to take over that creativity and engineering, is it going to happen? Just yes or no, because this is the last question.
100%. That's going to happen.
It's going to happen,
going
but
to happen.
Is it good?
It's a necessary thing. I mean, I don't think it's good or bad. I mean, again, this is the part where we are essentially saying that, we are basically asking a compulsion, we are giving a compulsion an option. I don't think that's an option.
Right.
It's going to happen.
I don't think app can replace engineering brain. I don't think any app would be able to replace or even outperform, for that matter, an engineering brain. If you have good engineering brain, it will give you better output than any of the app that can, probably. And then the role of engineer would get changed to a certain extent. All right, you are not doing any calculations which you are doing 15, 20 years back. Today you are doing optimization sitting on the app.
Right.
The effort of optimization will come down. It's not going to be zero still. You will still need to do it. And third part is helping architect. Yes, it can be done this way. You take support like this, you take column like this, you take beam. If you do framing like this, it will be more optimized solution. Those kind of engineering solutions will have to come from engineer's brain only. Software is not going to give that.
Okay.
And software gives that, then it is not creativity anymore.
Well, Ruchir, you want to change your opinion?
No. Okay, I'll just cite an example. It's not architectural or building, but it's a product example. This was tried. They had engineers who did 3D modeling, parametric based design, but the parameters were defined by the designers, product designers. It was for a faucet. And the flow rate, quantum of water which will be saved based on efficiency, as well as the impact and the feel of the water on your hands or your body was done. And then a 3D model created and it was 3D printed. Because this was a tap which was like a lattice. Every tube had water coming in. It was all twisted, interacting in such a way that the final flow came in the manner exactly decided by the product engineer. Now, the same thing can be replicated to a building. The whole process will be there. The software, again, in my opinion, is just a tool. It's the designers, it is the engineers who will have to sit down. The metallurgists worked on the metal material because they worked out right to the level of coefficient of friction of the material. So the alloy is not exactly the same brass and whatever we use for a standard tap. So, and of course it had to be 3D printable. So, all technologies are enablers. How we implement it is going to be our choice, it'll be our decision always.
Right.
True creativity, I feel, will always be a human endeavor. And frankly, we have been outdone by nature already. So we've got a lot to learn, all our technology is going to still be infantile because nature's technology, in my opinion, and Buckminster Fuller's opinion, was that nature's technology is a cow which is capable of converting grass into milk. The day we can do that, that time we can talk.
Right, Prashant, last opinion.
Well, I agree with whatever he says. Yes, technology will always be a tool. As he also said that the nature will be raising the various challenges for us, and we will always be racing behind, trying to capture those things as far as creativity is concerned. In the beginning only I said that if we can create something which the God has created, then only we are greater architects. And I think that phenomenon will remain ever and ever, whether the technology is there. We used to do drawings in pencils, now we are doing it with those pens and computers. Hardly matters, sketching is sketching. So that is what I think. I feel that there are going to be more and more challenges. Technology is going to be only supportive elements, and we need to actually keep working on ourselves as to how we can stretch out these creativities to challenge with the nature. I would not say challenge, but at least to tune in with the nature. That's what I would say.
That's right. So it was fantastic. What do you feel? Were you entertained and educated? So these are really, I must appreciate. Everyone has a deep thought process behind. I mean, we never prepared for this panel discussion.
Never knew the topic.
Only I knew the topic. Okay, and
Thrown by Amit.
yeah,
This was
absolutely.
googly by Amit, I'm
But
sure.
I really admire, they have already, like a philosopher, they have already thought about this and they were ready with the answers. It was amazing, and I really thank all of you for your great thinking and vision. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
We have to catch a plane.
Okay. So, thank you very much for all the stalwarts are sitting over there. So, very insightful. Thank you very much. So, I admire your answer for the physical laws has to be respected. So, I used to tell my engineer, Mr. Bhimvaram Srinivas, you go into the beam and bend like a beam, then only you'll understand how the beam is going to behave like. Then only that more thing is, what I mean to say, in that sense is, a perception of an engineer is more important. I have designed this TCS Deccan Park, that Mario Botto was designed. So he has entire thing in his mind when he was designing that total structure, designing architecturally, he knows how the structure is going to behave like. So entire thing has been, I designed that building in the year 1999. 26 meters are the spans on this side and 26 meters, and the floating columns, and a shear wall, and 10 meters cantilevers on the either side to make it look like a T shape. So such a big structure, and I have interacted only 3 times with the architect, we designed that. So at the same time, now we are designing one more structure, a budding architect. What he wants, a 17 meter span, and he wanted to suspend a floor from that, it's a double height space, at 10 meters. But he don't want a beam continuous, rather he wanted a beam over here and a 10 meters suspender here and one more member. And that too suspender he wanted a strings. So one should imagine at least the physical laws when a geometric design has to be done before giving it to a structural engineer by the architect. So otherwise that physical laws has to be respected. Otherwise we cannot go and give a,
There will be
crazy.
destructivity instead of creativity.
So budding architect has to learn a certain amount of structural
Fundamental
behavior.
natural laws
Has to be understood. Fundamentals has to be learnt before giving any structural designing. That is
right.
what my
That is right.
say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.